At first it looked like a night of triumph, but within hours, the kingdom was drowned in grief. It began as a moment of absolute victory, a coronation celebrated with wine and song, but by dawn, the great hall was silent, and the kingdom was covered in blood. This is the story of the curse that killed every king. The Throne of Blood. Our story takes us back to the mist-shrouded highlands of the forgotten kingdom of Eredor, a realm forged in iron and ambition around the 9th century. This was a land of jagged mountains and deep, whispering forests, where power was not inherited but seized. The kings of Eredor were warriors first, rulers second, their authority measured by the strength of their armies and the fear in their enemies' eyes. For generations, the throne had been a simple, unadorned seat of stone, symbolizing the rugged, unyielding nature of its people. But that was before the reign of King Malakir, the ambitious. He wasn't content with a throne of stone. He desired a symbol of ultimate conquest, a seat that would scream his dominance for all eternity. He wanted a throne that told a story of absolute, terrifying power. And so, the Throne of Blood was born. It was a throne unlike any other, not carved from wood or forged from gold, but built from the very bones of those who had dared to defy him. Following his final brutal victory in the Unification War, Malakir gave a chilling order. The skeletons of the 3 vanquished rival kings Valieris of the north, Rhys of the west, and Orin of the Sunken Isles were to be exhumed. Their bones, along with those of their most loyal generals and champions, were gathered. Under the oppressive heat of the royal forge, blacksmiths, their faces grim and shadowed, were forced into a profane task. They were commanded to melt down the armor, swords, and crowns of the fallen, mixing the molten steel with the crushed, powdered bones of their former owners. The result was a grotesque masterpiece of terror. The throne was a monstrous thing of twisted blackened metal, shot through with veins of ghostly white. The armrests were shaped from the femurs of giants, and the back rose high, crowned with the very skulls of the 3 defeated kings, their empty sockets forever staring out over the great hall. It was a throne built not just on victory, but on desecration. It was forged in betrayal, humiliation, and sacrilege. Malakir believed it was the ultimate symbol of his reign. He was wrong. It was the beginning of his end. From the moment he first sat upon it, a dark curse took root in the very heart of the kingdom. The reign of King Malakor, the man who commissioned this abomination, was meant to be the dawn of a golden era. Instead, it was terrifyingly brief. Just 6 months after his coronation, he was found slumped on the throne, a single, elegant dagger buried to the hilt in his back. There was no sign of a struggle, no witnesses. It was as if a ghost had risen from the throne itself to claim its vengeance. The kingdom mourned, but a new king had to be crowned. Malakor's brother, a celebrated general named Kalin, ascended. His coronation was a somber affair, the great hall heavy with suspicion. Kalin was a pragmatic man. He dismissed the whispers of a curse as peasants' superstition. He sat upon the throne, defiant. His defiance lasted 1 year. He was struck down not by an assassin's blade, but by a sudden violent madness. One evening, during a feast, he began screaming of phantoms, clawing at him from the throne, their bony fingers wrapping around his throat. He drew his own sword and, in a fit of paranoia, charged his own royal guard, convinced they were specters of the dead. He was cut down in the ensuing chaos, his own men weeping as they delivered the fatal blows. The pattern had begun. Every new king who dared to sit on the throne of blood met a violent, untimely end. King Theron the Wise, Kalin's successor, ruled for 3 years, the longest of them all. He tried to appease the throne, draping it in silks and leaving offerings of wine and gold. It was useless. He was consumed by a wasting sickness that baffled every royal physician, his body withering away as if his very life force was being drained by the cold skeletal metal he sat upon. Then came young King Lirin, who lasted a mere 2 weeks before being trampled to death by his own horse in a bizarre hunting accident, the beast reportedly spooked by a shadow that had no source. King Orion fell from the highest tower of the palace, leaving behind a note that spoke only of whispers from the bones. One after another, for 50 years, 5 kings ascended the throne, and 5 kings were delivered to an early grave. The kingdom lived in a perpetual state of fear, each coronation feeling more like a funeral. The throne, meant to be a symbol of power, had become a guillotine. The warnings had been there from the beginning. The high priests, custodians of the old ways, had pleaded with Malakir not to desecrate the dead. They spoke of ancient laws, cosmic balances, that, once broken, would unleash a torrent of retribution. They warned that a throne forged in betrayal and dishonor would only ever breed more of the same. You are not building a seat of power. The archpriest had whispered to Malakir, his voice trembling with dread, you are building a vessel for their rage, a tomb that will hunger for every king who sits upon it. Malakir had laughed, dismissing them as old fools clinging to irrelevant superstitions. But as the kings began to die, their words echoed through the haunted halls of the palace. The priests insisted the curse was woven into the very fabric of the throne. They said the spirits of the slain kings and their warriors were bound to the bones and metal. Their agony and thirst for revenge, poisoning anyone who dared to claim their vanquished seat. The throne wasn't just an object. It was a nexus of vengeful energy, a gateway for the dead to reach back into the world of the living. Their warnings, once dismissed as feeble protests, now sounded like prophecies that had come to pass with terrifying accuracy. The physical evidence of the curse was impossible to ignore. Dark rust-colored stains would appear on the seat and arms of the throne, resembling dried blood. At first, the servants scrubbed them away, using sand, lye, and holy water. The throne would be gleaming and clean by morning, only for the stains to reappear by nightfall, sometimes in the very same spots, sometimes in new, disturbing patterns that looked like grasping handprints. The bloodstains became a gruesome daily ritual. No matter how many times it was cleaned, the throne would always bleed. The servants who tended to the great hall spoke in hushed tones of what happened when the room was empty. They heard faint mournful whispers seeming to emanate from the throne itself when no one was near. Some swore they saw the eye sockets of the skulls atop the throne glow with a faint, malevolent red light in the dead of night. The temperature around the throne was always unnaturally cold, a pocket of winter that never thawed, even in the height of summer. The air felt heavy, thick with a silent, oppressive sorrow. Cleaning the throne became the most feared duty in the palace. Servants would draw lots, the loser approaching the cursed object with trembling hands, their prayers drowned out by the palpable sense of malice that radiated from the skeletal metal. The blood always returned, a constant, gruesome reminder that the throne was not just an object of political power, but a living, breathing vessel of death. After the death of the fifth king Arion, the kingdom teetered on the brink of collapse. No nobleman was brave enough, or foolish enough, to claim the crown. To sit on the throne was to accept a death sentence. The royal council was in turmoil, the kingdom without a leader. It was the archpriest, the same one who had warned Molocher 50 years prior, now a frail ancient man, who finally proposed a solution. He declared that the curse was bound to the throne itself. Appeasing it was futile. Destroying it, he warned, could be even more dangerous, potentially releasing the vengeful spirits to wreak havoc across the entire kingdom. It was born of the earth and metal, he proclaimed, his voice echoing with authority, and to the earth it must return. We cannot destroy the anger, but we can bury it, we can silence it. So began the final desperate act to save the kingdom. Under the priest's direction, the great hall of the palace was evacuated. Stonemasons were summoned, not to build, but to entomb. A deep pit was dug directly beneath the throne, into the very foundations of the palace. The air was thick with anticipation and fear. No one dared touch the throne. Instead, using a complex system of heavy chains and levers, the masons and engineers slowly, carefully, began to lower the monstrous chair into the earth. Imagine the scene. The great hall, once a place of celebration, is now a place of grim ritual. The only sounds are the groaning of the wooden levers and the agonizingly slow scrape of the chains. The throne descends into the darkness, inch by inch, as if being swallowed by the underworld. The priests chant ancient rites of binding, their voices a low hypnotic drone meant to lull the vengeful spirits into an eternal slumber. As the last of the horned skulls disappears below the floor, a collective sigh of relief, so soft it's almost a gasp, ripples through the onlookers. Then, silence. A profound, peaceful silence the palace hadn't known in 50 years. The masons worked through the night, filling the pit with consecrated earth and stone, sealing it with a floor of plain, unmarked granite. The curse was not broken, but it was contained. The throne of blood was buried, imprisoned beneath the very palace it was meant to rule. A new throne, carved from the ancient oak of the royal forest, was placed in the hall. A distant cousin of the royal line, a man named Diron, was crowned king. He ruled for 40 peaceful years. His son ruled after him, and his son after that. The curse was finally over. The kingdom of Eredor slowly healed, and the story of the throne of blood faded from history into legend, a dark fairy tale told to frightened children. The palace archives record the reigns of the 5 cursed kings, their short lives a stark footnote in the kingdom's history, but the official reason for their deaths was attributed to political instability and assassins, not a supernatural curse. The truth was buried, just like the throne. But do you want to know the secret? The chilling truth that the priests never told? They didn't just bury the throne. They buried it for a reason. Recent archaeological scans of the old palace ruins, conducted with ground-penetrating radar, have revealed an anomaly beneath the Great Hall. A large, metallic object, shaped like a chair, is still there, but it's not alone. The scans show that the earth around it is saturated with an unusual organic residue, and the throne itself, it appears to have grown. The metallic and bone structure seems to have fused with the soil, sending out what looks like roots. The throne was never truly silenced. It was planted, and deep beneath the ground, in the cold, silent dark, it has been waiting for someone to dig. What happens when a curse isn't broken, but merely put to sleep? And what will be unleashed if it is ever woken up?